first, let's hear what Mountaineer head coach Steve Sabins had to say following the weekend sweep of Kansas, a sweep that puts West Virginia one game out of first place in the Big 12 Baseball Conference with 3 games remaining to play. West Virginia got the sweep of Kansas State at home. They knocked off Marshall in Charleston. Then they went to Kansas and swept that series. So the Mountaineers are 7-0 in the month of May. Great start to the month, according to head coach Steve Sabins.
The guys have been playing good in the month of May. I thought they came down to Kansas and were really clear and confident, and we pitched good, and we had really good at-bats across the board. And for the most part, base ran well, and guys had fun playing. I think kind of in the entire month of May, they've been loose. They've been enjoying each other. School ended, I think, on Thursday. Everybody was done with finals. And so that's always a good feeling for those young guys to be able to kind of put that behind them, and had a lot of success academically. And so they got to turn the page on that and just focus on baseball and play good baseball.
So, again, the home runs, that is getting a huge amount of attention because obviously Gavin Kelly's been on a tear, but it's not just Kelly. West Virginia's hit a total of 13 home runs in their last 6 games, and when that Kansas State series started, they were last in the league.
Yeah, it's amazing the power surge that they've gone through as of late. But I know, West Virginia just wants to score runs, but it's a whole lot easier when you can do it 4 bases at a time.
So you also had Tyrus Hall and Sean Smith and Paul Schoenfeld homer in that Kansas series win. So, again, obviously Gavin Kelly's on a tear, but he's not the only one hitting the ball out of the ballpark. And Coach Steve Sabins addressed this recent power surge.
We were last in the Big 12 in home runs, and so some of it has to do with ballpark factor. Some of it has to do with cold. Some of it has to do with being on the road. Some of it has to do with swings and approach. But the reality is that we're probably averaging out a little bit just because it didn't make sense. Like, we have guys that are leading the country in barrels that had 5 or 6 home runs. And so if you hit enough balls hard and in the air, you're going to start hitting some home runs. And so I think it's probably more circumstantial and kind of the statistics evening out. It's a hell of a nice time to do it down the stretch here. But I think there's some experience in getting comfort, and Sean Smith has learned how to pull the ball in the air. He didn't really be able to do that. And Gavin Kelly is starting to be able to understand, like, in certain counts and situations, to get the bat head out and take that risk of, jumping a pitch. And maybe that might lead to a little bit more swing and miss occasionally in earlier counts. And so there's guys evolving, but there's also, I think, some balancing of those stats.
So West Virginia, by the way, still is in last place in the league in home runs with 40 on the season, 3 fewer than Arizona and 6 fewer than UCF. But, again, the power surge here has kind of turned those numbers around. In terms of team batting average, West Virginia's 3rd behind Texas Tech and Arizona State. And in the doubles department, they're 6th. So they are driving the ball. They're getting extra base hits, but not necessarily home runs, and they lead the league in triples. So number 1 in triples, 6th in doubles, 3rd overall in batting average. And we've talked many, many times, this team just finds ways to score runs. And they're 2nd in stolen bases. They run the bases very, very well. They steal at a very high percentage, not quite as high as Cincinnati. We saw that when Cincinnati was running the bases well. But West Virginia, 91 of 116 in stolen base attempts. The 91 stolen bases, 2nd in the conference. So they're doing things like they have all year, finding different ways to score runs.
Yeah, and again, it's maybe a little bit different method, but offensively they've done a lot of things all year, sometimes differently, but found a way to score runs from the very beginning of the year, double digits in a vast number of games throughout the year. But then on top of that, they pitch really well, and they have fielded very well. So, the 3 key factors they've been strong in.
And that was the next topic was defense. West Virginia leading the Big 12 Conference in fielding percentage by a wide margin. Arizona State is second. Oklahoma State is third. But West Virginia, 981 fielding percentage with a very, very wide margin. And they've made the fewest errors in the Big 12 Conference by 9. They've made 9 fewer errors than anybody in this league. BYU has the second fewest. West Virginia with just 33 errors. BYU with 42. So they lead the league in fielding percentage, and they've made the fewest errors.
That's a recipe for success, is it not?
Yeah, no doubt. Coach Steve Sabins talked about that, the defense rising to the top.
It's the best defense that I've coached here in 11 seasons. You have the fastest player in the country playing first base. So there's like ground balls hitting the 4-hole that are just hits that are taken away every time. There's diving plays in center field. You have a catcher playing left that throws 100 miles an hour. Gavin Kelly's throwing out an ungodly amount of runners. If you look at the stats there, I don't know what that number is, but at one point it was like 60% caught stealing number. So that's impossible to do. Also not sustainable, most likely, but incredible. Kresser's playing out of his mind. Matt Einish has been a rock. Tyrus Hall's the best third baseman I've ever coached, bar none. And then you have speed in the outfield and plus defense with Wills or Lumsden or Melissa, whoever's playing.
So a lot to digest there in terms of the defense. And he's right. I mean, you've got a tremendous one of the best defensive center fielders in the country playing first base this year because another option developed in Paul Schoenfeld, who's just as good defensively in center as Guzman was. So that gives you the option to move Guzman to first, and he's played brilliantly there. And Coach Sabins has joked about having 4 shortstops on the infield, including Guzman, because he related a story today about every chance he gets, Guzman reminds Sabins, hey, I should be playing shortstop. I'm good enough to play shortstop for your team. So you remember they moved him to third last year in the regional and played great. And now he's playing at an elite defensive level at first base, a position he hadn't played until the season started. Literally, the season started this year.
Some guys are just baseball players.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Gavin Kelly is one of those. Some guys are. The catch Schoenfeld had in the game Sunday when he laid out and had the diving catch and ended up doubling a runner off was a huge game. I mean, you look at it, it's a run rule game. It's like, but at that moment in time, I mean, that saved at least one run, and who knows how many if that goes in for hit. But that was just it was a wonderful play at a massive moment.
And, you've got a situation there where you're switching your catchers up too. So you've got a catcher in Gavin Kelly, who's an elite defender, not only behind the plate, but at second base. And then, oh, by the way, you take your other catcher and put him out in left field, and he's doing just fine out there.
Yeah. Yeah, they're just, again, a lot of good baseball players on this team. Two more cuts from Coach Steve Sabins. He talked about Max Yale's effort against Kansas, again, the Big 12 pitcher of the week after throwing the 9-inning complete game Friday in West Virginia's 4-1 win over Kansas.
The confidence that Max is feeling good and is healthy is probably what allowed for it the most. And just his desire to want to win the game, and the fact that he said every inning that he came back into the dugout that he felt better than the inning before. And so we've kind of learned with Max, even as good as a performance as that was, he's kind of done that all season. Like, you don't have a 2 ERA or a sub-2 ERA by giving up many runs. And so it's been kind of eerie in the sense that even if a couple guys get on base with no outs, it feels like, well, the likelihood is that they won't score here because they just haven't over the course of 60 innings or more this season. And so that break was probably a godsend for him.
Yeah, so he takes the time off there, rests the shoulder a little bit, and comes back better than ever.
Yeah, And again, he's going to lead your drive as you go down the regular season and then into postseason play. And West Virginia hopes they got a lot of postseason in front of them, and Max Shale will be a major ingredient in that.
All right, I didn't see the title on this last cut. It might be the Armani Guzman story about him wanting to play shortstop. So one more cut here with Steve Sabins talking about his first baseman, Armani Guzman.
I asked him if he could play third base last year because we were struggling and we didn't love our third base options last year. And in the conference tournament at Globe Life, we pinch hit Guzman and he got a hit and got 2 hits, and then he ended up getting to third base. I was like, dude, can you play third base or not? And he's like, I can play third base. Just put me there. And so his arm hadn't always played. His arm action hadn't played across the diamond great, but we ended up putting Guzman there, if you guys remember, at the regional, and he was the regional MVP and showed that he could play. And then I asked him if he could play first, and he said, I'm a shortstop. Of course I can play first. Our running joke is he tells me just about every day that he's a shortstop, and I've screwed up by not putting him at shortstop his whole career.
So there you go. Guy that can play, like you just said, a baseball player.
Yeah.
Reminds you of J.J. Weatherholt
Mm-hmm.
in the major leagues, learning a brand new position as a rookie in Major League Baseball after having played the left side of the infield in college and in the minor leagues. They move him to second as a rookie and acclaims himself very, very well.